What is happiness? Well, I do not recommend, depending on where you're at in your life, but I do not recommend necessarily to go after happiness. And I would love to share with you my experience of that message in a moment. What is once happy, what you once worked towards to create that emotion within that we call being happy, being satisfied, and being fulfilled, can be a curse, because what you once gained, usually, if it's self-impressed happiness, turns into disappointment or sadness once this happiness is lost again. And you know what I'm talking about. When you feel once utterly happy to be with a person that you desire to be with, and then you separate for some reason, which doesn't matter. For some reason you do separate, and the question is, how do we feel then? And we can argue that this is normal, but I would love to open the doorways to new ways of living by telling you that if you truly are happy, if we want to use that term, that label, there is no opposite to that emotion. It is not even an emotion anymore. It is a state of being that I rather call joy, contentment, and love. Right? And so often we work towards the idea of wanting to feel more happy, and there's totally it's legitimate. It is fair enough. Truly is. But I would love you to ask yourself the question of, how is it even possible to work towards emotions? You can't work towards building a wall, right, so to speak, laying bricks upon bricks. But how can you work towards an emotion that is internal, right? Emotions are either there or they're not. What creates the illusion of us being happy suddenly in moments that we feel we wanted to accomplish or we desired to have is because of our story, of our mind impressing expectations upon our life, which is based upon our conditioning from the past, that we trace back into the future, that we want to live by now. And unless we live by that conditioning, but that past expectation, but that past conditioning of what we feel life needs to be about, if we do not fulfill that expectations, we create pain in the future. And we create pain right now if we don't feel we are living that right now. But again, happiness either is something you create if you accomplish that goal. The problem with that is it is only temporary, because life is changing all the time, as we know, right? So what is once gained has to be lost again, right? And this may be the death of the most lovable person on earth, of your partner. But everything is lost again eventually. And so happiness only can be temporary in that state, in that future progression, if you wish. And it's always changing into sadness, into disappointment, because suddenly we see not any more longer our expectation our expectations being fulfilled, our way of living being fulfilled, and that creates pain again. Now, the story I would love to share with you is a story that, like yourself, I worked towards and was after happiness, fulfillment, as we all are. And, I felt amazing about myself when I accomplished these things, right? As we do. I mean, it's cool, it's okay. And then you lose it again, and you're like, frustrated, like, why did this happen this way? And, I just want you to understand that this is only self-impressed. Your mind tells you what is right, what is wrong. If you do feel that, it's all cool. If you do not, it looks pretty bleak. Life looks pretty bleak in that matter, right? And that is when depression comes in, and this is obviously a deep emotion in that sense. But we do not have to live that way. It becomes this up, high, and low, sad, life journey, this up and down, this constant, roller coaster ride, if you wish, right? And if you feel a sense that this needs to finish off because you do not want to live with that any longer, for example, I would love to propose a different way of living that is, in my sense, truly worth experiencing. There's no right and wrong, just a different way about it. Okay. And I do relate a lot back to the moment when I lost my thoughts, and that maybe not something that you heard before, nor did I when it happened to me. I in fact was in denial of any spiritual journey at all. But eventually a moment occurred in my life when those shadow boxes, those voices sitting on your shoulder that tell you what's right and wrong, that tell you you're not enough, that tell you to fear, that tell you to not be confident, that tell you to be superior in terms of an egoistical approach, that all dropped away in an instant. And in that sense, as we know, emotions are interconnected or interlinked to thoughts. What you're thinking is the reason why you create certain emotions or why they arise. And we all know that story. Right? But there's not the entire picture of it. Because you see, you can only push in NLP, in neuro-linguistic programming terms, as soon as you push against those boundary conditions of your own story, of the person you think you are. Once you push against it and you want to expand, you create pain. So once your goal is fulfilled, you're all good. If you do not fulfill it, you feel sad. So the question is, what's the point of that? Is there a way of living that is more in flow of life, that is more a linear progression, more of a beautiful symphony that plays out, rather this up and down that we constantly experience, right? And there is a way. And the way is for us needing to dissociate from the way of living that we expect to unfold in our lives. How can we even expect our future to unfold? How do we even remotely can comprehend or know what's going to happen with all those variables that could occur in the world? You could assume things and guess, but how often did it happen in your life that what you planned out just did not happen the way it was planned to? So there is a way of living that is content and joyful and peaceful. It has nothing to do with being happy or with any sort of emotion. In fact, happiness has always a polar opposite to it. And there are some states of being that has no opposites. If you truly love somebody in that state of being, it doesn't matter what is occurring to you, you always will love. Because there is no polar opposites. And you cannot get hurt in that moment either. That is beautiful. And the way you go about it is to expand the realm, or that life that you need to expand to truly find out and discover who you are. And that can only be done through self-inquiry. You can only go within to find that out. And simply how we do that is by creating space and silence within our mind to actually to diminish that, to tune that a bit down. Once we tune down those thoughts, we create a gap and a space in between thoughts, right? And the gap is the moment of choice again. The gap is what you truly are. And it creates the possibility to you and for you to create new empowering decisions in your life. So make time for yourself to get out of your head and drop into what I call silence through meditation. I don't know and I don't really care how you do it, but do it. Make time for yourself.